Scripture tells us to not neglect the gathering of the saints. For too long, many of our churches have been shuttered and our gatherings curtailed. During this Lenten season, it is time to beautify our sacred spaces and return to our traditions. Ad Crucem is having a sale on our church banners. For the month of March, our banner prices will be reduced by up to 30%. Visit adcrucem.com to take advantage of this incredible pricing. That's adcrucem.com.
You're listening to the Lutheran Ladies Lounge podcast. I'm Sarah.
I'm Erin.
I'm Bree.
And I'm Rachel.
That was try number 2 to get the intro right. And if you listen to the end of the episode, you'll hear why. Today,
I cannot.
Today is an Erin's recipe card. Guys, the studio smells so good.
So fantastic.
Right now, I'm really excited for this recipe, even though I can't even eat it. It smells so good. It is the Gumbo episode for reasons that may be obvious, or maybe you'll just learn why in like 2 minutes. So Erin, take it away.
Well, it's actually the Crock Pot episode. I remembered
Pot
this
episode.
after. Sorry, we confirmed, and then while you were introducing, I was like, wait, it's the Crock Pot episode.
It's the Crock Pot episode.
It's okay. So for the Crock Pot episode, surprise, I chose to make gumbo.
We know what we're doing today. Totally planned this out. It's fine.
Because it's that time of year when it's getting a little colder. Well, it's not anymore, actually. So it's just a weird day all around because it's hot outside.
It's like 75 outside.
I know. Last week,
What?
though.
Okay, well, it's 40 degrees here and miserable. So
Okay.
that's
You
normal.
get the gumbo.
Yeah. We are actually recording on Fat Tuesday itself.
Yes,
and
we
so as I considered what I would be making, I decided I was going to do gumbo.
Yes.
And I did a little looking to see what sort of recipes might be out there already for crock pot gumbo. And there were a number of them. However, I happen to have a delicious family recipe for gumbo. It is my Uncle Kermit's gumbo.
I love it.
And my Uncle Kermit grew up in the Beaumont area of Texas, which is essentially the bayou part of Texas. It's close to Louisiana. It's very swampy. And so anyway, this is the gumbo that his family would make.
Louisa, Texas.
Yeah, maybe. Anyway, so I was like, I really want to be able to use Uncle Kermit's recipe, but in a crock pot. So I decided to use the basic framework as far as like times go and that sort of thing from the online episodes entries of crock pot recipes for gumbo, but use Uncle Kermit's actual ingredients. So our gumbo is sitting here getting a little cold. So before I go into it much further, I think that we should taste it because it's going to be better before it's cold.
Go for it.
So you might or might not want some hot sauce on it.
Okay. Oh, boy.
Normally, obviously, the Louisiana's traditional would be Tabasco, but right now I have Cholula, so that's what I brought.
Girl.
While you guys are tasting it, I can just say that even regardless of whether the temperature is 40 degrees or 75 degrees, this is a fantastic recipe for Lent. Because even if you're not having soup suppers this year, you're going to be having soup suppers at some point in the future. And any accusation that Lutheran soup suppers are bland can be completely counteracted by putting this gumbo recipe, which, spoiler alert, I've already tried because I made it here in Connecticut. But if you make yourself a crock pot of this stuff and bring it to your Lenten soup supper, not only will your crock pot be empty and probably licked clean, but you will dispel any lingering doubts about the blandness of Lutherans, because there's a lot of flavor in this crack.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Bro!
How do you like it, Brie?
I do love it.
Mm.
Are you going to talk about the sausage part a little bit?
Yeah.
Because I have
yeah.
questions.
We're going to talk
So,
about all of it.
Indeed.
All of it.
Why don't? Well, we'll start by discussing the recipe itself.
Yes.
Can you explain what gumbo is?
You're right.
Because-
That's a better place to start.
Because I think I used to have like cans of like chicken gumbo soup when I was a kid, but I'm pretty sure that is not even close to what actual real
Gumbo
gumbo
flavored soup.
is.
I can't at all imagine what that was that you were eating, but I have to believe that it wasn't anything like this.
I also grew up in Michigan, where I'm pretty sure we don't have like Louisiana gumbo.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So it turns out there is a lot. Every time I was looking this up, like looking up crock pot gumbo, Google kept suggesting that I might also be curious to know if what's the difference between gumbo and jambalaya.
Oh, yeah.
Apparently
Please
that
do.
is a mystery to many people.
Elucidate.
They're very different. Very different.
explain.
Gumbo is like a soup, a stew, sort of cross between a soup and a stew. Jambalaya is essentially Cajun paella.
Yeah.
It's not a soup at all.
Uh-huh.
It's rice with a lot of seasonings in it and a lot of
Scramps.
toppings.
Okay.
So they're very
But
different.
gumbo does usually involve rice at some point.
It's true.
Right.
You do
Some
serve it with
overlap.
Serve it
rice.
over
so
rice.
there is that, but it's in itself, it is definitely a soupy stew.
Super stew.
Not like or another equivalent might be Chinese fried rice. It's again very different. So gumbo, some of the key features of gumbo, and actually for a lot of Cajun food, and here's where I'm not totally clear what the real difference is between Cajun and Creole. So if there's a listener or someone in the Facebook group who wants to add something to this, but my personal take on it is Creole is city and Cajun is swamp. It's sort of like the city versus country divide, but they're very similar. They're cousins, but the one is more of the city version and the other is more the country version.
Oh, that makes sense.
Personal opinion, but yeah.
If you just look at the word roots, since Cajun comes from the French Acadians who were kicked out of Canada, basically. But Creole is a reference to the cultural melting pot of New Orleans.
Okay.
And so you would have a very, slightly different culture and cuisine, obviously.
Yeah. Some of the key features of Cajun food in particular, it does have a lot of roots.
So delicious.
It does have a lot of roots in French cooking.
Yeah.
So there's a heavy influence there. So many Cajun recipes start with, first you make a roux, R-O-U-X, and it's the classic base to almost all the French sauces. For Cajun cooking, typically with a French roux, you do that and you end up with a very light. You don't cook it a long time. You end up with a very light mixture, equal parts oil and flour or butter and flour, and you combine them and then you use it to thicken your sauce. With a Cajun roux, you almost always want the roux to be much darker, so you cook it for a much longer time until it is almost the color of fudge.
See, now you should
dark brown.
probably add that to the recipe notes, because I made this recipe, I was like, I need to be purist here. I'm not going to watch any YouTube videos. I'm not going to look up any other recipes. I'm going to follow Erin's recipe and then do my own thing.
Yeah.
Go off there. Try to figure out as I go. Because I cooked the roux and I cooked it and I cooked it and I cooked it super low, as your recipe says. And I quote, "Cook slowly in a pan, stirring frequently until it turns a dark brown. This will take a long time. Don't go too quickly and burn the roux. If you see dark specks appear, you burned it and need to start over." So I decided to try this, and I cooked it very low for a very long time. And after about 20 minutes, and it hadn't really changed color, I was like, okay, I'm going to turn the heat up.
Okay.
But I did
Yeah.
not have it finally started to get this lovely browny color.
Okay.
But I did not know exactly when I should stop. So I think I stopped before a point that would have been ideal because I was terrified of burning the roux because I'd been standing over the stove for half an hour. And I didn't want to have to start over at that point. So I took a conservative approach there, but that didn't stop it from being very delicious, as we will go into, no doubt, later on.
I have a business enterprise idea that just popped off the top of my head. Are you ready for it?
Go.
Pre-browned roux in a jar.
Let me tell you,
it's called kangaroo.
It already exists. It doesn't have that name. So indeed, that's part of the note in the recipe is that you can make it yourself or you can do the shortcut that my Uncle Kermit does and buy a jar of roux.
Yes.
Cajun roux.
I should have done that.
Brown.
I forgot to put it on the grocery list. So I was improvising.
I will say, my guess is unless you live in that part of the country, it's going to be hard to find.
Connecticut is not going to carry kangaroo.
I got it. I just ordered it on Amazon, and I picked the one that was going to arrive in the time frame in which I wanted to actually make my gumbo. But they have my uncle's preferred brand is Carrie's. I used Savoy. Anyway, yes, it is definitely a thing. Yes. It's a dark brown, and it does save you all the time of having to stand over the stove indefinitely.
So really you just heat it up and then go to the next step?
Yeah, just mix it right in with your stuff. So
that
it does offer, when you go with a really dark brown like that, part of what it adds, so it does thicken still, but it does also add flavor. So it's not just, it's not only serving the thickening purpose. The smell of it was almost, to me, it was reminiscent of toasted sesame.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
I got almost like a popcorn or a toast kind of smell.
Yeah, maybe if you had gone further, it would have moved into that realm. Maybe you were in more of the medium. Who knows? But it does add sort of a brown taste as well.
A little umami to the
brown taste. I know. I actually literally think about it. I was like, I'm not bringing this in because I know that there'll be comments. It is not the beauteous looking item when you're like, particularly coming out of a jar. And I'm like, ooh, yeah. Well, anyway, but the end product is what counts. So, anyway,
so we start with the roux.
Yes, you start with the roux. The Cajun roux is very dark brown. Then the next key feature is the Holy Trinity, as they say, and in French cooking, it's onions, celery, and carrots. That's the classic combination. I think that's
aromatic vegetables.
Yes. A key feature of Cajun food, flavor profile wise, is that they swap out the carrots for green peppers. And so that shifts it. There's green peppers, they have that very distinctive taste to them. And so that is a distinctive of Cajun food. So this is an area where I did actually modify Uncle Kermit's recipe. I know. Because like Rachel, I told her I was going to do this and she's like, I've never met a recipe I haven't done this to. I increased the vegetables significantly.
Yes.
So
that
it originally called
I did too. And that was a good tip.
No regrets. Yeah. Originally called for a half a cup each of these vegetables.
That doesn't sound like a lot.
It's not a lot. And I was like, that's just, at first I thought I was going to double it. And then I'm like, it needs more than that. So I ended up using 2 large green bell peppers, 1 medium large onion, and about 4 to 6 stalks. I think it was 6 stalks of celery is what I used in the finish. And that was roughly equal parts, just visually. I didn't bother measuring. Yeah, those are for you to use as much as you like.
I did a little bit different approach because as we all know, I have a delicate stomach these days. So I have to be careful with onions and peppers. So I did about what the recipe called for with green peppers. I added some to the onions. It was more like 3/4 of a cup of onions. And then I put in easily 2.5, 3 cups of chopped celery.
Mm-hmm.
I also did not do quite as much garlic as it called for, again, for that same reason. So I was trying to get the flavor, but it doesn't take a whole lot. I get a lot of mileage out of my spices.
Absolutely.
So if you have a delicate stomach, the celery is going to be your friend here. Just go heavy on celery, and it's wonderful.
Yeah. So it does have a fair bit of garlic in it.
What are we talking about with a fair bit?
Well, let me now.
That's a wide range for people.
My memory and actually look at the
Let's
recipe.
go.
For my husband, a fair amount would still be quite a bit. So.
Maybe a bulb and a half.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay, well, not a bulb and a half.
I'm Italian. What do you want?
So in this recipe,
4 cloves.
yes.
Oh, that's
4
not that
cloves,
much.
Yeah.
That's a lot for me.
That's fair.
That's fair.
That's a sneeze of garlic for me.
4 cloves.
Sneeze of
Sneeze of garlic is not a measurement.
You know what? I may have come close to that because I don't have time in my life to mince garlic. So maybe I used a tablespoon of pre-minced refrigerator garlic.
I use minced too. It's fine.
And it turned out great.
Yeah. Okay.
So yes, garlic. Much garlic.
Garlic. Yeah. Parsley, a 1/4 cup of parsley. And then a half. Oh, whoops. I'm editing this as I go along.
No.
A half teaspoon of thyme, a 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne, half teaspoon of black pepper. And I started with a half teaspoon of salt. This sort of depends on whether you get salted chicken stock or not, if you do or not. So I always start with less salt and then figure I'll adjust the seasonings at the end, because once you've gone too far with salt, you can't. There's no fixing it.
You can't unsalt it. Nope.
Yeah.
Tread underfoot.
So
Throw it on the ground.
I was skeptical seeing only a half teaspoon of salt, but once I added in the salted chicken broth, it was perfect. So that is a good measurement there.
So and then your chicken meat, 1 pound of boneless, skinless chicken thighs or chicken breasts. And I have a note on that one, on the chicken. Put them in whole. Don't chop them up first. Some of the Crock Pot gumbo recipes that I saw online called for it to be chopped up.
Ooh.
There's no point of doing that. Just put them in whole and then shred them up with a fork at the end.
Yeah.
It'll be a much more pleasing experience to your mouth. So
It was.
Okay, I totally chop my chicken. So you can do it either way.
Well, it's an option. Yes.
It was pleasant to my mouth.
I have to say, chicken thighs in soups, the way that we make, because we make soups in Instant Pot. Chicken thighs, personally, are so much better than chicken breast.
Agree.
The flavor is just so rich and delicious.
And less expensive.
If you can find them, I could not yesterday at the store, so I ended up pulling out a couple of chicken breasts from the freezer because you never know what kind of meat you're actually going to find at the store yesterday.
Well, that's
Yesterday,
true.
today, any day these days.
Supply chain.
Yeah.
And then you also use a half to a 1/4 pound of sausage. I used andouille, which is sort of the traditional Cajun flavored sausage.
That stuff is spicy.
So
Yeah.
it's not crazy spicy, but I'm sure
one
there's
I've had-
varieties. I'm sure there's a whole
Variety
spectrum of andouille sausage.
I got some from Trader Joe's a while ago, and man, my mouth is burning for days.
That would be my one change when I make this again, and I will make this again, is I did get the andouille sausage, and I thought it was delicious, but it was a little too spicy for me right now.
Like it was so delicious.
Yeah, that's fair.
So I would go with a slightly milder sausage, though it was delicious. I love spicy food. I just have to be careful.
Is there a particular sausage brand that you like to use?
No, I used just what was available at the store. And I mean, kielbasa is a solid option. That's
I think
kielbasa. That's what my family
kielbasa.
used when we were growing up, when we were kids and that sort of thing. I'm sure it's definitely a milder sausage.
Yes.
And so
So good.
don't if you can't find andouille or if you think it's going to be too spicy, kielbasa is a great substitution there. Optionally, you can add some shrimp. So like a half pound of shelled shrimp, you can add in, but you're going to want to make sure don't put that in at the beginning.
No.
Shrimp do not take long to cook at all. So they do not need to sit in your crock pot for 9 hours.
Oof.
They'll disintegrate.
Would they
basically.
disintegrate?
I don't even know what happens to them.
They would turn to rubber is what they would do after about an hour.
Yeah, I think they would like condense into themselves.
There's bits of tire in here.
No.
Exactly. So I cooked mine using the crock pot because that was my challenge this time. And so you add all the ingredients to your crock pot except for the stuff that you're going to use for serving and the shrimp. But other than that, put it all in the crock pot with the roux. I actually did. I put that in first, and then I added in some of the broth to sort of loosen until it was loose enough that I didn't want to end up with just a big old lump of roux at the bottom.
Yeah.
Typically, when you would make gumbo on the stovetop, you would slowly add the stock and dissolve it and then let it simmer away. So I made sure to mix in the broth and then combined it with the vegetables. And then I nestled the chicken breasts on top. I tried something and I ended up, initially I thought I was going to be increasing the broth. And I'm still going to list it slightly increased, but I added more broth than I think I should have.
Oh.
And I think part of that is due to the size of the crock pot bowl that I had. So when I put it in there, it just looked it looked kind of shallow. And I should have just nestled those chicken pieces a little further into the vegetables so that they were covered. But instead, I was like, well, let me just add another cup and a half of liquid. And I think it was just a little too much. So I've made a note in the finished recipe that you would use 4 to 5 cups of chicken stock for this amount of that. And then you just start your slow cooker. My only thing I was slightly anxious about yesterday is I was like, what if the power goes out at my house? Just sitting there on my counter all day long doing nothing. And then I've lost the whole batch.
I love that that's the one thing you're concerned about is the gumbo.
I know. But the power didn't go out and it turned out great. I actually brought it and had supper with the family that I have supper with every week and ran it by them. And so I was able to have children eat this as well.
Oh.
And the verdict, even the picky eaters it was acceptable. It was on the they felt it was on the verge of spicy. So some of that might depend on how spicy your andouille is to begin with. But they did not feel it was too far, even for their youngest, who is not yet ready to add hot sauce to anything.
Wow.
So yeah.
Congratulations. Yeah. I don't think I will get the same reviews. Just a hunch.
Okay, so then how do you serve it then? Because you leave all the stuff out for serving.
Right. So then you put some rice in your cooked rice. Cooked rice in a bowl, top it with some gumbo, and then have some green onions that you can put on top of that as a little
expertly sliced on top of my bowl.
Yeah. And then optional hot sauce if you need it here at the end.
Here I am licking the bottom of the bowl.
So and I do think the roux, it really does, I think it adds a really sort of a silky texture to the broth.
Yeah.
It does. There is a textural element that it adds to it. It makes it have a little bit more mouth feel. So Rachel, let me hear your take on it, because you did it a little differently, I think.
I did. I have a confession to make, you guys.
Oh no. Did you smoke your family out of your kitchen again?
No. I cheated.
Oh no.
I did not get my crock pot out of the box. See, I have a love.
Bree's very mad at you.
I have a love.
I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed.
Relationship with my crock pot. It comes from the days when I was working really long hours, and I had this dream of putting food in the crock pot in the morning and coming home, in the evening to a wonderful slow cooked meal. And somehow, when you're out of the house, when you factor in all the commuting and the kids' pickups and all of that, and suddenly it's 10 hours and everything in the crock pot tastes like a cafeteria, and you're not even sure that it resembles the food you put in it. Anyway, I use my crock pot more as a serving vessel. I cook the stuff on the stove, then I transfer it to the crock pot to keep warm when I'm cooking for church or something. Anyway,
appropriate.
but now that I'm not out of the house all day, I find that I prefer the back simmer burner on my stove as a slow cooking option. And so I used a stock pot instead of a crock pot to do my cooking. But it turned out beautifully. And what this allowed me to do is to sort of cook it in stages. So I did my roux. I got it. I should have let it get a little darker, but then I added my vegetables into the roux and let them simmer for a few minutes until they were soft. Because I really wanted the vegetable flavor to be really infused throughout all of that.
Yeah.
And then I put the sausage, the chicken, the roux and vegetables, and the broth along with, I added the spices to the roux and vegetable mix too. Again, I just wanted that to be like a flavor bomb. And so then I put everything with the broth. I used just, I rarely use store-bought stock. I am more of a bouillon cube person. Yeah.
Yep.
But I actually bought some proper chicken stock for this. So I just used the whole quart. And it was right. It was easy. And then I let it simmer on the back burner pretty much from like 11 to 3, which is when I thought we were recording. So I had my bowl all ready to eat with you guys, but then I ended up eating it because it would have been a shame to let it get cold for an hour.
But no one's judging you.
It was really delicious. I served it over leftover rice, which I didn't even bother to warm up because the gumbo was hot.
Yeah.
It was, and I added the shrimp right in the last 15, 20 minutes of cooking. I would just go out there on a limb and say the shrimp are not an optional extra. If you want this dish to be everything it can be, consider the shrimp as essential. And in fact, one thing I thought about doing, but didn't do because my husband Ken thought this would be weird, but I'm pretty sure I've had gumbo this way before, would be to add not only shrimp, but some other kind of seafood, like a cod or a haddock or something right there at the end too. So then you've got just that a little bit more savory protein with some flakiness to it. Although the chicken was melt in your mouth delicious. So I'm really happy with how that turned out.
Ken's weird. Did he ever think about that? Any amount of time?
He just hasn't tried it yet. I will probably, if I have leftovers, I will rewarm it and add some fish then. So he can
weird,
compare.
nevertheless.
But it was really delicious. I was a little scared of it. Again, delicate stomach. But I have so far had no trouble, and I'm really, really happy that I have something this flavorful that I can sort of keep in my back pocket for days like this. So it was really, and I'm grateful. I've never done any serious Cajun cooking before. And I really am grateful to you, Erin, for making me try something different. This was the first time I've ever achieved a Cajun flavor without the use of a container that says Cajun seasoning on it.
Yes.
Like I did it all with the right herbs and spices and flavors and everything and no like shortcuts. So I feel really, really proud, actually.
Nice.
Or
Fantastic.
a box with a word that rhymes with schmatterans. Hashtag guilty as charged.
Yes. So no cheating. You can actually achieve that authentic Louisiana flavor just using like whole food ingredients. So that was really empowering for me. So I'm probably going to have some more after we finish here. It's too good.
It gets better. So it'll be better tomorrow. It's one of those soups that sometimes, where it's even better the next day once the flavors have had a chance to.
I'm not sure it'll be around tomorrow.
Yeah.
Even if half my kids turn their noses up at it, the half that don't will go back for seconds, I suspect. Just call it a hunch.
Indeed. In that case, you'll enjoy it the day of, and it'll still be delicious.
It's true.
If you do end up at some point, if someone makes this and they decide to, double it, if they have a really large crock pot or they just want to use their stock pot on their stove, it does freeze really well. So like most soups do, it freezes really well. So It's one that you could easily make and then also save and set aside so that you can enjoy it for a while and not have to spend multiple days with it at once.
Are there any other ingredients? I know we kind of talked about protein, but like, let's talk about vegetables for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any additions or subtractions even, maybe, that would be reasonable to this recipe?
Well, so this one is Cajun gumbo. If you wanted to have it as more the Creole style of gumbo, you could reduce the chicken stock by about maybe a cup and then add in a can of tomatoes.
I was going to ask about tomatoes.
Okay, gotcha.
So the tomato is one of the features that like Creole gumbo will use tomatoes and Cajun gumbo won't. So you could choose to add you could choose to add some tomatoes.
Okay.
If you wanted, and I did not do this, I've always wanted to try it and I just didn't because I was like, no, I'm making Uncle Kermit's gumbo. However, okra, it's a controversial ingredient.
It's the best.
And I don't know if we've talked about okra in the past on this show.
I am
We have
pro okra or procra, in fact.
Yeah.
Team
so-
okra over here.
Yeah.
We had a long discussion about okra in our preparation for this episode.
Yeah, exactly. So okra it's a divisive ingredient. I love okra in many ways. However, what makes people hesitant about it is that okra has mucilaginous properties.
Mucilaginous.
It's slimy.
And it's slimy.
Yes,
it
it
makes
is.
it sort of a mucus. So you can use okra when you cook okra in liquids. That's what activates the mucilaginous properties. Then
The okra gets snotty.
yes, and it thickens your whole soup. So, I mean, you could use okra to thicken it. I mean, that might be an option actually. If someone, I would go easy on it. I might do a little Googling to see like quantity wise, and then I might even go easy on that amount and sort of see how it behaves as I add it. You can get it in the freezer, so you can buy frozen okra.
Unsnotted?
Yeah, it's just cut up
Got it.
and frozen in the like a freezer bag. So you could do that, but I would go easy on what I would add and see how it's behaving. My guess is if you don't go overkill on it, it's fine, and it's not going to be a really weird texture or anything like that. And it'll be okay. Now, okra is delicious, so. If you've only had stewed okra, which is it is a thing, then that's just one facet of its personality. It's
multi-dimensional.
It's multi-dimensional. It's a layer. It's got many faces. So also okra is fantastic fried.
Yes,
so that is
it's like
classic
dessert. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So then you slice it up into bite-sized pieces and you dredge it in cornmeal and it's fried and it's tasty and it's not slimy at all.
No. I need to try that.
Yeah.
It's like the closest thing to caviar that you can grow in the garden. Because the okra seeds, they sort of and they do that in the gumbo too, which is that what you gain in slime or what you lose in slime, you gain in the lovely texture of the okra seeds.
I believe it to be true.
And if you live any further south than I do, please do yourself a favor and get some okra seeds and grow the plant. It's easy to grow if you live further south. I can't grow it here. At least I haven't tried. I don't think I can. But beautiful, big, yellow flowers. They're gorgeous. And then the okra, just make sure you harvest them when they're smaller than you think they should be because they get super tough super fast. But store-bought okra is nowhere near as good as what you grow yourself. And it's such an obscure vegetable. You're very rarely going to actually see it in the produce section.
Yeah.
So, all you St. Louisans, please grow some okra and send me some because I can't.
Yeah. It's great grilled. So fried is good, but you can also grill it. Just toss it in like a little bit of olive oil, put on.
That'd be good.
It plays well with a lot of different flavors. Okra is used in Indian cooking as well as African cooking.
Interesting.
And then, of course, Cajun and Southern cooking. So it plays well with all those flavors.
It has a nice sort of like natural pepperiness to it that is a wonderful, wonderful flavor.
I just texted my husband that we need to grow okra.
Oh, you totally should.
And he'll know what you're talking about too.
Oh, he is a Southern guy. So yeah, he loves
This is the voice of God.
Yeah, he loves fried okra and frying it like that with just olive oil, like grilling it kind of pan frying maybe. That is talking my language. That is how I make all of the vegetables.
Exactly.
Oh, I need to try it now. I'm hungry.
Aim for pieces of okra that are about the size of your thumb. That would be ideal.
Any bigger than that, it'll get so tough you can't even put your knife through it.
Yeah. But when they're small, they are so tender and they have a rich flavor. Very delicious. You can also get it pickled okra. Get that off the shelf in the store. And it's a very pleasant eating experience as well. So if you have only ever had stewed okra and that just really it gave you nightmares.
That's me.
Then know that there is more to okra than that.
There is.
And if you like stewed okra, but you haven't had the other type, there's more to okra than that. And if you really like okra on all those other types and have not tried it stewed because you've always been afraid, maybe it's worth a little experiment because maybe it'll turn out that the flavor of okra is worth the thickening and you don't even mind how it behaves in your soup.
Yeah. If I'd had okra, it would have gone in the gumbo today. I just didn't have any. So yeah. Yep.
I definitely want to try it in some of the soup. We make soups all the time. And I bet you
experimenting
it would be
with.
so
Aren't
good.
you always looking for things that will work as thickeners for you?
Exactly.
Yes, I am.
All right.
Yes, I am.
Okra snot.
Yeah.
Now watch it. You'll try it and be like, you guys, I reacted so badly. I can never eat okra again in my life.
You know, like almost every time I'm super excited to try something new and then I try it and then 2 days later my body's like, nope.
Allergen watch.
So it is I believe it originally came to the US from Africa.
Yeah.
So I don't know that it's related to the usual things that would grow here. And you can eat sweet potatoes, right?
Yeah.
Which are also
it's
typical African food. Maybe
it's not a nightshade, which was one of the things I was worried about. It does have a high level of solanine or something, which is also what's in nightshades. I don't actually know why I can't eat nightshades, if it's actually that or something else random. So there is actually a bit of a possibility that I will react to it, but I still want to try it.
Won't know till you try.
Won't know till I try it.
Yeah.
If I don't come in one day, you'll know what happened.
And I thought I'm allergic to okra would just be an excuse to not eat somebody else's okra. No, it will actually make me very ill.
Yes.
I am going to try it though. Very excited about that.
So I hope you all out there try making some gumbo. It is delicious, and even in this weather, it's still good because spicy food will make you sweat, and that'll help you cool off. So even in the hot weather, you can eat your gumbo and enjoy.
And you're not standing over a stove when you use it in your crock pot.
Yep.
And you use the roux out of the jar.
Yeah, kangaroo.
Can I just say though, I was very nervous about this recipe. I really was, because I've never done anything like this before. It turned out to be surprisingly achievable. So if you are nervous, I mean, I know Erin's like super chef over there. Like I firmly believe you can cook anything, Erin, and it will be amazing. And you will have tweaked the recipe in some bold and yet totally successful way. However,
confidence.
However, I have had some full-on kitchen disasters, and yet this was not one of them. So I'm very, very glad to add this to the recipe box.
I think, and I think just think about how this technique is not unlike others. So think of all the other things now that you can make for your family using this similar kind of formula.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I can do Cajun cooking.
You can do it. You can do it.
If I can do it, anyone can do it.
Okay, so we will share that recipe Uncle Kermit's Gumbo in the show notes. So
is
everybody,
his name really Kermit?
Yeah.
I don't know anyone named Kermit.
Moreau.
that is such a cool name.
I just think when I think of Uncle Kermit, he looks like Kermit the Frog in my brain. I'm sorry. No offense.
Uncle is not a frog.
Does he?
I'm just envisioning like this altar family photo. It's like a family reunion 2021, and it's all your family, but Uncle Kermit is actually like Kermit the Frog, like photoshopped in.
I bet he's never heard that one before.
Playing his little banjo.
Never.
Being sarcastic right now. Wow. Wow. Wow.
Anyway, we will share Uncle Kermit's Gumbo recipe in the show notes. So if you are now inspired to make this, which I hope you are, because it smells amazing and it looks amazing.
It tasted fantastic.
Yes, there you go. You should all try it. Find that in our show notes. And find all the rest of our Erin's Recipe Card episodes at kfuo.org/Lutheran Ladies Lounge, or on your podcasting app, or on the KFUO radio app. You can also share your thoughts about this recipe once you try it in our Facebook group. You can join us there, the Lutheran Ladies Lounge on Facebook. You can also share your photos of yourself and your family making this recipe
or eating it
on your Instagram and tag us at Lutheran Ladies Lounge, and we'll share those into our story as well. If you aren't on social media, or if you just like to get some Lutheran Ladies Lounge content in your inbox, you can sign up for our e-newsletter. It goes out once a month. You can find out how to sign up for that in the show notes for this episode, or you can send an email to lutheranladies@kfuo.org. That goes to all four of us, and we can get you signed up for that email newsletter list as well. Happy Lent, I suppose. When this drops, it'll be Lent.
Yeah.
It'll be Lent.
Schmale.
Don't say it.
No,
Sorry.
You're listening to the Lutheran Ladies Lounge podcast. I'm Sarah.
I'm Erin.
I'm Prokra.
And so am I.
So delicious.
KFUO Radio and the Lutheran Ladies Lounge podcast are underwritten in part by Ad Crucem. Visit them online at adcrucem.com. Views and opinions expressed on the Lutheran Ladies Lounge podcast may not represent the official position of the management or ownership of KFUO Radio, the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod. The Lutheran Ladies Lounge is produced by KFUO Radio and available at kfuo.org or wherever you get your podcasts. Join our community on Facebook in the Lutheran Ladies Lounge. You're listening to the Lutheran Ladies Lounge podcast. I'm Sarah.
I'm Erin.
I'm Bree. Sorry.
And as always, I'm Rachel.
Sorry.
Oh, this is my episode, and that's how you introduce yourself.
So it came out. I couldn't help it.
It's going to be a long recording session. Should we do that over?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
Okay.
This will be an outtake.
Yes, it will. You know it will.